Well, welcome back, folks. In this episode, we're going to continue on with some light assembly for the Suzuki TS50 restoration project. I'm going to remount the engine in the frame. We're going to install the swing arm, and then we're going to move on in the second part of the video to discussing the wheels, the rims, the tires, spokes, and hubs for this project, as I have to make some decisions moving forward what I'm going to do next. And I thought I'd bring you along for that conversation. So let's go ahead and get started with the mounting of the engine first, then we'll move on to the Typically, when I'm installing an engine back into a restoration, I try to do it fairly early in the process of reassembling the engine. A couple of reasons for that. One, I usually work alone, and especially if you got larger engines, it's not quite as much an issue probably with this little 50, but if you got little bigger, heavier engines and you're trying to wrestle them around and the project is up on its feet or up on its wheels, you have to get creative with lifts and that kind of thing to get the engine in place when you're working alone. Certainly I could get one or two of my buddies over here to help me, and I actually have done that before. When I did the Kawasaki H2A 750, I think I had 3 friends help me mount the engine in that project. But I find it's just easier when you work alone to do it early, kind of get it done, and at least in position. And it actually adds a little weight and helps stabilize the frame at the same time. So it's easier to just manage it when you work alone like I usually do. I have installed engines a little bit later in the process. In fact, I think in the Honda SL125 it might have been a little further along, but I'm going to install the engine right now. And it's almost in position, not quite. You can see the top engine mount right here, and this is the hole in the frame that the bolts go through. Again, there's 3 bolts you can see here that I have restored and replated. The washer right here, that's a new washer from Suzuki. There's supposed to be a flat washer. 6 washers are used, 3 bolts, flat washer on each side with a lock washer and then a nut. Somehow or other, I came up short 3 of these washers. Excuse me. 3 of these washers, so I'm going to add those to one of my next upcoming orders. So for right now, what I'm going to use is 3 nylon temporary washers, you can see here, and I'm going to reuse temporarily the original nuts that came off of these bolts. I do have the right nuts and bolts here, lock washers, I should say, and the bolts or nuts that go with them, but I'm not going to use those right now because I don't want to put tools on those nuts and take the chance of damaging them when I have to pull these temporary ones off after I've ordered the new fasteners. But I do have 3 of the new ones here, and I'm going to go ahead and use those here in a second. Again, the engine is pretty much in position, so what I need to do here first is I'm going to make sure that the rear is about in position. It's pretty close right now. And see if I can't get this bottom motor mount bolt into place. I'm going to have to finagle this just a little bit here, like that. There. Put on a nylon washer, and then one of the original nuts again. I'm not going to tighten that up right now. I'm going to leave that nice and loose because I have to continue on with the other 2 mounts. So I'm trying to do this without getting in the way of the camera, which is easier said than done. There, we've got the engine back in the frame. This particular mount right here, I think, is used, if I'm not mistaken, for the muffler bracket. That's why it's a little longer than the others. And again, these nuts are only temporary. As well as the nylon washers. They will be replaced, and I have lock washers, of course, that go with them too right here. But they'll be replaced a bit later after I have ordered the new parts that I have mistakenly not ordered, apparently. I'd ordered some, but not enough. I'm just going to snug that up a bit. Well, now we've got the engine mounted. Again, once I get the rest of the hardware, I will come back and tune that a little bit, but it's basically in position. Now we're going to move on to installing the swing arm, which will be very straightforward. You can see these two temporary wooden struts I made from old spare wood I had in my wood box in my pole barn. Drilled approximately half-inch holes, 13 millimeter. They're about the right size to fit over the top and bottom. Mounts the top on the frame, the bottom will go on the swing arm itself. This hardware is new from Suzuki, so I ordered that some time ago. The swing arm pivot, you've seen this before along with the, here it is, get the right hardware. There's the hardware, the washers and nut for the swing arm pivot, and I replated this some time ago in a previous video. Put a little skim coat of grease on that bolt or on that pivot. Didn't overdo it. You don't need to goop this all up. Just a little thin coat to ease its transition through the frame. And it'll protect it a little bit from moisture. The pivot bolt goes through from the left to the right side, just like the motor mount bolts did. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach one of the struts just to support the swing arm while I fiddle around with trying to get it to fit right over these bosses right here on the frame. And again, I'm going to do my best to keep my head out of your way. There, that went on pretty easy. There. Flat washer, lock washer, nut, and then we'll go ahead and attach this pivot here. Again, just temporarily till I get the chrome back and can rebuild the shocks, get those installed. So the swing arm pivot, or the swing arm rather, is installed. I'll tighten that nut up off camera later. I'm not going to worry about that right now. And the engine, of course, is temporarily mounted. Let's move over to the workbench, and we're going to talk about the rims, hubs, tires, and what my thinking is regarding replacing. Take a brief look at each of the wheel assemblies, tire, rim, hub. This happens to be the rear unit off the bike. I believe the tire is original. It looks like it's original to me. I have no idea if the tube is original. It does still hold air. You can see that the hubs were originally painted that ubiquitous Japanese silver, both the hub itself and the brake and backer plate right there. Let me turn this over for you to take a look here. The cush rubbers right here for the sprocket not in very good shape. I'll probably end up replacing those. The rim itself, again, this is the back wheel. The rim isn't too bad. It does have some battle scars here, as you would expect of a bike that's 50 years old now. Most of the zinc has gone from the original spokes, though none of them are broken and none of them are missing. So I think what I'm going to do is replace both rims. You can still buy these rims, at least they're still listed as available in the Suzuki parts catalog. Rims are around $80 a piece, I want to say. You can still get the spoke set as well. I think that's like 25, 29 US dollars. So for, let's say, 105, 110 US dollars, I can have a whole complete set, that being the spokes and the rims, or rim. It would cost me probably close to $300, I would guess today, to have this original rim re-chromed. Now for a rider or a reconditioning project, this rim is completely acceptable to me. If I had a rider, I'd use this rim all day long. It's not that bad, but for a restoration project, I think it does need to be replaced. Let's take a look at the front wheel. Really the same story for the front wheel. Tire, I believe, is original. This is probably in a little bit better condition than the rear tire, not surprising. The rim is also in better condition. In fact, my buddy Jim looked at this rim and he thinks I could reuse it for restoration. I'm not going to. There's just enough minor damage and scratches in the chrome here and there around the rim. If you look closely, you probably can't see it in the video, but it does show a little bit of scuffing here and there. So my intention, again, is to replace both rims and spoke sets. Now, I do have to obviously break this apart. I can't leave it intact because I need to get the rims out. So I've got to, pull the spokes out so that I can repaint the hubs, both the front and the rear. And I will probably powder coat those eventually when I get around to it. In terms of the bearings in both the front and the rear, I don't know what I'm going to do with the bearings yet. I usually replace bearings. I don't always. It depends on the condition. I'll probably pull them out, clean them up, take a look, decide whether I'm going to replace the bearings or not. Certainly they'd be re-greased at minimum. And then a new set of tires. Again, I think I can still buy new tires for this bike that are period correct in terms of the pattern. These are 250 by 17s, by the way, both the front and the rear. So that's my thinking on the rims. I've not ordered any parts yet, that is the rims and the spokes, because I wanted to first get into open these hubs up a bit, delace the wheel so that I can get into the hubs, see what the bearings look like, and decide at that point what I need to order. If I need to order the bearings as well as the hub or the rim and the spokes, I'll do it all at the same time. So that'll be part of a future video here as we get into that. These rims, of course, are completely salvageable. I will probably eventually resell these, as well as the spokes and the tires if anybody wants them. Of course, I've got to get them all apart first, so they're not quite ready to go at this point. This tire, I noticed, doesn't want to hold air quite like the other one did. It's got a slow leak in it. It could be the stem, the valve over here. I don't know, but I'll replace the tubes anyway when I get to that point. So that's my current thinking on the rims, spokes, hubs, and tires. Most of it will be replaced with new, except for obviously the hubs will be repainted. I think that's going to be it for this video today, folks. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.